In 2014, the federal government took more property from individuals than burglars did. That year, they raked in $4.5 billion worth of property through a process called Civil Asset Forfeiture, which is a legal tool that allows law enforcement to seize your cars, homes, money, and more, all without ever charging you of a crime. Now, you might be thinking, Jacob, how is this legal? This sounds like theft. Well, let's take a step back for a minute. Back to the origins of civil asset forfeiture. The civil asset forfeiture was first used hundreds of years ago by the British to combat pirates. Well, what happened was, pirates would sail into Britain, carrying materials that were illegal in Britain, and the British knew this was happening. Small problem though. The foreign pirates were not British citizens, and they couldn't be charged in a British court of law. So the government came up with a different solution. Instead of charging the person with the crime, they would charge the property which they would then simply take. After the American Revolution, this process was known and used by the early American government, but only in the same way that the British used it. In recent times, though, our government has turned this from a process that was once used to combat foreign pirates to a process that they now use against their own citizens. The world of civil asset forfeiture is kind of like playing poker with me. The deck is going to be stacked against you. You could be an incredibly talented player, but if I'm dealing, I'm going to win. In the same way, in the world of civil asset forfeiture, the laws on the books leave you pretty much defenseless. Even if you're completely innocent, there was little that you can do to stop the state from seizing your property. And that's because in a civil asset forfeiture case, you don't have to be convicted of a crime. You don't even have to be charged with one, because it's your property that's charged with a crime. Like the pirate's cargo, it's your cars, your money, even your house that's charged with being involved in illegal activity. And oftentimes, the amount that's taken is outrageous and overwhelming. In Philadelphia, the birthplace of the Constitution, one family had their house seized because their son was caught on the porch selling cocaine to an undercover cop. The argument was, well, obviously the house was complicit in this illegal activity. In Ohio, one college student lost his $11,000 life savings because his bag smelled like marijuana, even though the police found no evidence of any drugs. Again, the argument was, well, who else has that much money unless you're a drug dealer? And oftentimes, the tactics used to seize the property are borderline blackmail. Either sign this waiver to part with your property or go to jail. And while there are some cases where the individual is also charged with a crime, since 2001, 87% of asset forfeiture cases have resulted in no conviction for the individual, but his property still being taken. And the process to get your property back is so complicated that it actually acts as a deterrent. While your property is being charged with a crime, the process is almost the exact opposite of a normal criminal case. In a criminal case, you have the right to an attorney. In a civil asset forfeiture case, you have no such right. In a criminal case, you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. In a civil asset forfeiture case, you are presumed guilty until you can prove your innocence. And in a criminal case, the standard of evidence for the state to win is set at beyond a reasonable doubt. But in a civil asset forfeiture case, the standard is set much lower. A mere preponderance of the evidence, which is a fancy way of saying more likely than not. A little bit more than 50-50. A coin flip to take your property. And perhaps the most scandalous part of this entire process is that in Ohio, up to 100% of the property seized goes directly to the agency that seized it. The more they take, the more they stand to benefit. It's state-sanctioned theft. 19th century economist Frederick Bastiat once said that it is impossible to introduce into society a greater change and greater evil than this: the conversion of the law into an instrument of plunder. My friends, this is civil asset forfeiture. It's corrupt, it's legal. And in 2014, the cops took more than the robbers.